Hey guys, Rod here, Jetboard Australia. Welcome back to the channel. We're in the workshop again, as you can see. We've got a customer's board here, and unfortunately his poor old throttle cable has seized up. As you can see, there's nothing going on there. You pull it back and it jams. So what we're going to do today, we're going to show you how to remove that throttle cable, how to set it up properly, and get him back on the water again. So, all right, let's get into it. Okay, let's delve right into it. So first thing we need to do to get to the throttle cable itself is remove the fuel tank, which is pretty simple. Undo the little strap, undo the fuel line. There's a little fitting you just push just there, and then undo the fuel pump cable, which undo there. So you basically just get your finger under that little tab, pull that back, it comes out. Now the trick with this is this hose gets tangled up, so hold that hose, grab the fuel tank, and wriggle it out all at once. And then once it's sitting up on the engine there like that, we just pull this little snap ring towards the tank, and the breather tube pops out. Tank's out of the way. So then from there we're going to get into the cable. So the easiest way to do that is remove the clamp here. So we just undo the Allen key here, and I like to take this completely off. It's just easier to work on when it's out of the way. So this little clamp arrangement there, just take that completely out of the way, and you can see where the cable sits in that groove there. And there's a matching groove in this one down here. Then down this end on what we call the throttle drum, there's a little, I guess you'd say, cylinder on the end with a slot, and that dropped out very easily. So you basically turn the throttle to full, flick the cable downwards, and it drops out of the slot. And then that cable will pull through. Get them out, it's a bit tight sometimes. I'll give you a lot of room. I'll wriggle that out of there. Boom, that's that cable let in. So because we're changing the complete control, so obviously to change the cable, you need to change the control completely. We've got to disconnect obviously the start-stop power for that as well. So we'll get that under there. What we will show you here, see how this cable here is bubbled on the outer? This is why we're replacing it. The cable still moves, but it's quite stiff. And because of this bubbling in the cable here, we'll never be able to sufficiently make it loose enough and make it last. So we're going to go to the point of changing that one completely, unfortunately. Yeah, and you can see the rust coming out of it there. So anyway, that's cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to undo the wiring for that. Now up under here, there's a connection block, and it sits in a little rubber arrangement. So basically you just pull it back towards you and it'll come out. So there's actually a little rubber tab that sits up on that edge, but it's flexible enough, you give it a pull and it'll come right back, and it sits in its little V slot there. So the cable we're looking for is this one with the blue cable tie on it, and we'll see if we can cheat, but I think we'll have to pop this little cable out of there to get into it, and then remove the, down this end, remove this O-ring off there, and that holds that particular plug in position, so you can pull that out like that, and then again, fingernail on there, and pull him out. There she goes, and so that's the cable on the other end. We'll leave all that down there for now. So basically that's all we do at this end, and then there's a hole just there that it all pokes through. So what we may do while we're here, we'll set up our drill cable as well. So let me get that on the go. Okay, so this is my drill cable. So it's just a heavy wire cable. You can use string, wire, whatever you like. This is what I use for all my draw jobs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape that on with tape. I'll grab some insulation tape here. And we'll tape that up. And the idea is, see that little edge? You want that little edge covered with the tape so it doesn't catch on anything. So it sort of makes a little bit of a taper there. So put some there, and I'm going to run it further along and right up to the end of that knob there. I'll do. And what I like to do is leave a bit loose so you can get it off afterwards. If you push that on, it's difficult to find the end again. So that's set up that end. So what we're going to do is zip up the other end, pull the snorkel off, and then draw that, that cable through. Okay, first up we're going to remove the snorkel. The snorkel has an outer and an inner, and it's very difficult to get the cable through and set up the breather hose and the tether cord for the handpiece as well. So we'll remove these, and I'm not using my normal tools because this is a bit of an odd size, the Allen keys in here. So I've just gone back to conventional Allen keys. I have pre-loosened these a little bit because they're generally tight, and in some cases I've actually had to drill the heads off them and then replace the rings that hold the snorkel on. So yeah, can be a bit of a thing on older boards. This is a not so old board, so it hasn't got too badly corroded, so it's not too bad. And again, one of the reasons why we're not, one of the reasons why we are replacing this cable is lack of use and lack of lubrication. You know, these should be lubricated every 6 to 12 months. This board now is creeping on 2.5 years old and hasn't had a service and hasn't had it lubricated. So it's been left a little bit too long and has been left with a lot of salt in the engine compartment. So that's caused that to deteriorate. But anyway, we'll fix and we'll get them out. So those screws are out. So the way this works is we can pull that cord through a bit and that pops off there. That becomes loose. And then what we've got in here, I'll peel it down so you can see it. There's your breather tube there. Now that's important that we put that back in the right position. But for the time being, we need to move, whoops, I'm hitting the camera with that. We need to move these rubber grommets. Now let me get this up here, out of the way. Or the rubber sleeves, I guess you'd want to call them. We'll move these rubber sleeves. Often easier said than done. Slide that along and get that out of the way. That's not going to move. It's being bugger. So let me get something in there. A bit of helping hand. A little screwdriver in there. My Phillips head. Loosen that up. And what we might do is pull that breather through if we can. Oh, it's tight. Very tight. There we go. Now it's starting to go. Oh man, that's stuck. All right, breathe this loose there, and then ideally we want to get this further forward. That's better, like that. So then we can get that to slide up like that out of the way. That's our plan. We'll breather out. Now be very careful. Don't drop that breather back in the board. That's a nightmare to get back again. So we'll just tuck that out of the way so it's not going to cause any trouble. And then in here is a little elbow ducting. And pull that up out of the way as well, because this is the part that makes it very difficult to thread the cable in and out. As you can see, it's like a duck's bill that sits in there. So that's all got to sit out of the way for the time being. So now that that's loose like that, and we have the cable on the other end, we can start to pull this through. Now, all right, we've moved back to the engine compartment. So what I want to do is get this plug ready to pull through. The plug itself is caught or held in a little rubber grommet inside the board there. And what you've got to do, in fact, it's popped off, and this often happens for boards that haven't been cleaned properly. See how the corrosion's got under that? That's meant to be glued to the hull, and I'll re-glue that on later. But to give you an idea how it comes apart, which is handy in the sense, you just spread that, and that pulls apart. And as you can see, all of those little joiners have fallen off the hull, so I'll glue them back on again, and that'll get that sorted out. So what we're trying to achieve here, though, is get this in a position where it can go through this little grommet, and there's a little grommet inside here where that will poke its way through. And what I'm going to also do, I have done this in the past, and I've got this tangled up and pulled it through as well. I'm going to tie this off, because you do not want that tube to end up inside the board. It's a nightmare to try and get back together again. So a little tip, tie that up there. and we'll start giving this a bit of a pull from here. As you can see, that's starting to come through. Now I'm going to have to give this plug a helping hand to get through this hole here. So it's quite small. There you go, I'll push that through into the board and we'll continue to pull that through. Okay, so we're back up the nose end, and what I'm going to do, this tube worries me. I've lost one once before and it was a nightmare to put back in place, so I'm going to grab a bit of tape and I'm going to tape that to the board. That way, if I pull it the wrong way, it doesn't end up inside the board. That's taped on, out of the way. So, okay, we just continue to pull this through. I'm going to help the cable on the other end, and then you should eventually get the plug and the whole shebang out. And as you can see, that's where our original join was, and I did leave that bit of tape free, but obviously it's got tied up. But there it is there, and now I can remove the old cable from there. And with that duck spill out of the way, it makes life a lot easier to get that through the board. To try and do that with that duck spill in there is a real struggle. I have heard people are doing it, but yeah, not so easy. Okay, next step, we'll get the duck spill off. And as you can see how tight that was going through there. Now to get the snorkel off, we've got to get into the handle here, and we've got to undo these cable ties and undo that knot, and that's that's a shambles there. We'll probably struggle undoing that. It's obviously slipped. That should be more down here, so it's obviously been pulled on at quite a pace. So I think, you know what I'm going to do here, because it's almost on the end, I'm going to cut that off because that'll be very difficult to get undone. We're replacing this with the cord as well, so I'm just going to snip that off. And this stuff's tough, really tough, hard to cut, and my snippers aren't real sharp. I lost my good set somewhere along the line. Get the blame for that. Boom, and I'll get rid of those. And what I'm going to do to fix that end, I'm going to heat that up. Let me grab my little heat torch. It's a little self-igniting one, which makes life easier. I bought this in Alaska of all places. We were camping there a few years ago, and we're using it for starting fires in the wet weather. Obviously I didn't bring the gas bottle back, but just the end. So that's melted the end, and that's made that stop fraying again. All right, so that's out of the way, and then we pull the cord through. But I'm not going to pull it completely through the snorkel. It can stay in the snorkel, but I need to get it through these three, I guess you call sleeves there, and then the cable can come through the snorkel. Boom. Alrighty, and that's our assembly completely removed. All good. Okay, here we are. So this is the new control cable, or hand control is probably the correct term for it. Now, one thing you want to be aware of, there are about 3 or 4 different versions of this hand control based on the model of the board. Now, this is a DFI board, and as you can see, it has 3 plugs. Some of the earlier boards, 2016, have just a twin plug, 2 holes, and the plug position, whether it be male or female, is slightly separate. So make sure you order the right cable for the right board, because if you don't, it just simply doesn't work. So this is the right one for this one. Okay, so we're going to feed this cable back through all the bits and bobs it needs to go back into place. So we're going to be a bit smart about that. Obviously, the duck spill goes in first, so we'll put it through there. Then from there it goes through the snorkel. Put that up in through there. So that will sit all in place like that. And then we'll get the end of the cable here and we'll tape this on. So we like to tape this up pretty well because you've got the square plug on the end, a large headed plug on the end, and it gets caught on the way in. On the way out it's not so bad because it's tapered back to the cable, but this way around it can get a bit tight, and if you pull it too hard you can pull the tape from the cable and then it's stuck inside and your cable's not attached and it becomes a major. I've done it before and it's no fun. So a bit of patience and a little bit of planning with the tape makes life a lot easier. And I'll show you a little trick I do up here as well. And I'll get that actually on that side of it because it's less bulky. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to make a little taper with the tape on this end. So what I do is I sort of build up a little bit of a ramp almost to help the plug come in. It's not super, but at least it hasn't got an abrupt sharp edge on there. So we'll do that like that. And again, I always leave that loose so I can get it undone later. Coolio. So that should be right through the snorkel. Happy days. So what we're going to do now is start pulling that back through. So I might even feed this in through here first. Make life easier. And through the snorkel. And through the duck's bill, I should say. Poke that into the board. And as you can see, that's really bulky. That's the bit we've got to be careful with as we draw that back through. So we're going to work from two ends here. We're going to feed that in there and we're going to pull down here in the engine compartment. So here we go, we'll pull that through there a little bit more. Get that next joint through there. Get that tucked into the board. As you can see, it's starting to get a little bit tight. Now let's stick my finger through the hole here. Let's see if I can feel the tape at all starting to come through. There's like a little, I guess, gland that comes through here, a rubber gland. There we go. That's come through there pretty good. Yeah, beautiful. That's one of the easiest ones I've done. It can often be a bit of a nightmare. So I'm going to leave that like that for the time being. And what we're going to do is we've got to set up these rubber sleeves. So we'll slide them along. At this point, we'll get this breather tube through there. Like that. I'm going to put it back under the tape, just in case. And I can poke that back down into there. Change the camera there, make it easier for you to see. I'll get that into there. There we go. That's sitting on nicely. I'll line the holes up there. So, I'll get the snorkel next. Now I see that we're missing a cord in there, so let's see if, where are we? There it is down there. Here she comes. Excellent. All right, so what we're going to do now is going to set up this breather, and we use these three little sleeves here. So what I might do first, so I'll get this in there, and because I've made that end hard again by melting it, I can get myself a little, I've just grabbed myself a sharp little scriber tool there. This helps me push it through these little sleeves. So I'm going to dig that into the cable there. Try not to dig it in my finger at the same time, it's always bad. And then should be able to push that through. Of course it's playing games. So don't stab yourself when you're doing this. There you go, that's the first one. I'll do the same with the second. It's easier just to get started first. Nice. That's got him. Alright, so we want to get this. So we'll get our tube here. Make sure I don't pull it through that end. I'll poke it in here. This is the breather tube for the fuel tank, of course. She is. Alright, so what we've got to do, we've got to get that breather set up just below the snorkel here. And slide this down, get the position right, so go a little bit more. So basically, you want to go, say 20 or 30 millimeters or an inch, if you're talking imperial, just inside that snorkel. So that's in the right position. Now, again, a little pointed tool. I'll stab that without stabbing me. Almost through. That's got him. There she is. That's awesome. Grab pointy nose pliers here. And that just sits just in there, just below the outlet of the snorkel. So that's all good. So that's basically in place. We'll do the handle in a sec. We'll get that snorkel back into position. Get the little screws. Line up with the rubber, and it's turned. There you go. We'll get this line. Alright, that first one started. Cool, yeah, and that's the right position, obviously, with the cord on the snorkel lining up with the board position there. Alright, let's keep going. Do the opposing one. Boom, done. Alright, now let's work on this this cable setup from here. So basically what we want to do is even these up. And this is a bit personal preference too, to where you want these based on the V that you want in here. So that's probably a bit close. Something like that. Third one's inside there. Yep, and then we'll tie this on. Now, there's a certain length this should be, and what I generally do is I set this up. I'll put the engine cover on just to get you an idea, and then I generally have the hand control. Okay, I've just moved that camera angle around just so you get a better idea here. You can see what I'm doing. So what I'm doing, I'm going to set up this this length of the hand control. Now, obviously, it's a personal choice where you set it up, but I like to set it up to what the factory generally does. So the way I do it is I pull it tight, as you can see there now, and it just sits just behind those two latches for the engine cover, and it gives you about 3 inches, 70 odd mil of overlap on that cable. And admittedly I've snipped a bit off the end, but that'll be fine. So I reckon I'm going to run it about there. So now let me remember how we do this. So we want to go around through there and over that. See how I've done that? Over that through the back, and that comes back against itself, and see how that's like a little loop. And then what you got to do then, before you tighten it up, So you want it pulling square. And I'm fussy with this, I hate my handles being crooked. So that's pulling square. I can pull that down nice and tight on that. And that's great. And then what we do, as they do factory, they just put a couple of little cable ties around there, just to help hold it in place. So I like put one down that end, one down that end, there, there, and there. Awesome. Snip them off. And that end's done. So I'm going to run this one down a smidgy more. Again, as I said, this is personal preference how you set up. That's to do with the arc that's in the cable. So when you're riding it, how much loop's in that? In fact, that's probably a bit too much. I'll come back to there a bit and I'll even that one up. And that, you can play around with yourself. That depends on how much loop you've got. Sit that way, is when you're riding it. And sometimes it'll touch you on the leg, so you set that up like that. So that's good. I'm really happy with that. That's awesome. All right, so that's that end done. We'll get rid of that tape and then we'll dive back into the engine bay, get that end sorted, and we'll have it sorted out. Okay, let's finish off the engine bay end. So we'll get rid of this tape on the draw cord. Okay, let's get that draw cable out of the way. Get in the bin. So first things first, we'll do the actual electrical cable first. So we'll go back to our little joint here we had. So this particular one, which is again, look for the blue cable, 3 connector. This one sat in here like that, and that clipped. In fact, I think that goes that way, yes. Sits in that way with the clip on the top. And the reason I realised that is because I couldn't get into it to undo it, so that sits on the top. There'll be another cable that's come out of here, which obviously that one we took out originally. A little grommet in it, sit that in there. I'm going to remove my little breather tube there out of my way because it's not going to fall through anymore. That's sorted. Let's find this other cable that goes into here. There we go. That's it. That's the orange cable. That's actually the coil for the engine ignition. And that will sit in there. In there. Yeah, like that. That's it. And then this O-ring goes right over the top. And latches in there, and that holds the whole shebang in place. It's better. All right, cool. That's good. And then back into, and it's difficult to see. I might try and take a photograph of that with my phone, so you get a bit of an idea what that's all about in there. So there you go. That's that little block up in there, and you'll see on the front edge of it, it's actually got a little tab that locks it in place. Like a rubber tab that locks into that stainless steel bracket. So that's it up in there, that's what you're looking for. Alright, let's slide that back into position. So it goes in like that and slides into the block, and then the little rubber tab locks over that end to hold in position. So you'll feel that as you just put it up in there. I do it by hand. That's all good there. There we go, it's got it. And that rubber tab locks it in position, so that's it. It's there. Job's done. Alright, so now it's the cable itself. Now, this is a bit of a thing in itself, so you've got to get the cable under that cable there, and under that fuel injector, and it's got to sort of tuck under the fuel injector through the clamp and then onto the end. So I like to do, again, use a little draw cable for it. It's very difficult to get through. What I will do to make life easier and to make sure it's in position, I'll remove this cover, and that'll help us see what's going on. because if you don't get the cable in the right position, it's going to end up in amongst the starter gears, and that's no fun. It'll just chew things up and make a mess. So get that cover off there. So it's got to go down, and you'll see, and it's very difficult to see, there's a little tab down there that holds it in place, and the engine mount, I guess, mount there has got a flange on it, so it's got to sit down on that flange. So I'm going to put a small draw wire on this to make life easier. Get it in under there. If you're pulling the engine in and out, it's easy because you put the throttle cable on whilst the engine's actually sitting on its side in the engine compartment. In this case, the engine's already in, so we can't. So this little draw wire helps me through, and again, we're going to tape up that knob so it doesn't get caught up on stuff. Groovy. Alright, so that's all taped up. You can slide that under the fuel injector onto its mounting position there, under there. See, that's catching on that gear there. That's better. Okay, so we'll get it in position in here. Okay, so that's just dropped in position really nicely there. I'll feed that through. Lift that up over there. It's coming in really good. And there we're in position. And I'll take a photograph of that there now. So as you can see, the cable's on the engine side of that stainless steel tab, sitting on the crankcase on the inside of the black spacer on the engine mount, and sits up high there away from the gears. So that's the perfect position, and if you can get it there, you'll have no dramas, but if you get it further over, it'll end up the gears, and that's not a whole lot of fun. Okay, I've got that draw cable off. So as we did when we first put it on, we've got to get the throttle drum so that the ball, or the cylinder, will slide in. And that's kinking, which is not ideal. There you go. That's dropped into the cable drum there, and then pull that until we get all the slack out of it. See, that's actually starting to open the throttle. And we'll put that there, and we'll set that, and then we'll get the little cap to go on the top. Again, that's the clamp for the cable. Pop that into there. There we go. It's in position. So what I'll do is I'll just lightly make sure that cable's in the groove, which it is, and lightly tighten that. And then we go to the throttle. So what we want is obviously to get full throttle, which we are, but we want a little bit of play in there as well. And see, there's no play. I'm going to come back a smidgy. Just loosen that. We want a little bit of play in the cable, so I'm going to pull that a little bit. So we've got a little bit of play here. See a little bit there? We're getting full throttle. And you don't want load on that cable, so I'm actually going to undo that, let it self-settle, and then tighten it. Yep, that's good. Now, trick here, just nip it. If you do it too tight, it actually jams the cable, and this will actually not return, and that's nice and smooth. So there you go, that's it. We've got that sorted. Nice job. Okay, we'll just pop this cover back on, and that'll finish the job off. Cool, let's get that sorted. Get that out of the way. We'll get this fuel tank back in. Okay, we'll get the fuel tank on top of the engine there. We'll get the little breather tube, pull back the little white collar on the end, poke that in, give it a tug, make sure it doesn't come out. Make sure the little collar is outwards and that locks in. Then from there we get the tank strap. Just make sure the breather tube is behind the tank strap. So it sits in behind there like that, and then grab the hose and the tank, keep him up, and then S its way into there. This tank's a little bit swollen, that's why it's a bit harder to get in, but that's in place. It sits on the little knob underneath it there. Sort the Velcro out. We put the cable connector for the power on first because it's underneath, and then hook up the fuel line. Boom, that's done. Good job. Okie dokie. Well, that board's all completed. We've got the hand control sorted out, set up nicely for the customer. Works properly now. We've given the board a run. Runs like a charm. So we can get that back to the customer. So again, appreciate you watching. And if you can, please subscribe to my channel. It motivates me to do more and more of these videos, keeps more and more of these boards on the water for everybody, and we're out there enjoying it, and that's what jet surfing is all about. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again next time.